minds immeasurably superior to ours, regarded this earth with envious eyes. Those are part of the first paragraph from Jeff Wayne's War of the World. And there's no doubt about it, even before you hear the rest of it, you are drawn into it in a way that we possibly can't describe. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and very welcome guests, I'm going to use my time up here this evening to talk to you about why I believe life is a pitch. And by that, I don't mean what we say or how we say it, but the pitch of our voice, or maybe the depth of our voice, and how we should use it effectively. So let's take that example I've just given you, and imagine that if in 1978, Jeff Wayne had not chosen Richard Burton, and I apologise to him for the atrocious impersonation, had not used Richard Burton, but had used Michael Caine instead, would the production be so successful? I think not, but have a listen yourselves and see what you think. No one would believe that in the passing years of the 19th century, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this earth with envious eyes. Now, imagine that our friend RB here, Richard Burton, is a 9.5 out of 10. Okay? So young Michael Caine here, I need to value from you as to what you think he's worth out of 10. I'm going to start with 4, and I want you all to put your hands in the air, 4 out of 10, if you agree he's worth 4 out of 10. And when he is not worth what I'm saying the value is, put your hands down. And if there's less than 4 hands in the air, I'll stop the auction. Okay? So we all hands up in the air, please. Okay, so 4 out of 10, 4.5 out of 10, 5 out of 10, 5.5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10. Okay, so young Michael Caine is 6.5 out of 10. Not quite so good as our friend young Mr. Burton, who of course is dying probably because it was invaded by aliens. Okay, let's now move on 35 years. We're now back in 2013. And Sir Michael, as he is now called, because he's been knighted, has got the part again. But what does he sound like now? No one would have believed that in the passing years of the 19th century, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this earth with envious eyes. Now what's he worth? Hands up again. We'll start with bidding at 4 out of 10. Put your hands up in the air again. Right, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 7, 8, 7.5. Okay, 7.5. Sold at 7.5. So what has happened in 35 years, okay, other than him being 1 point higher than it was before, that has made a difference? He speaks slower and his voice is now lower. Now, I'm not surprised that you chose the lower voice, because as human beings, research shows that we prefer lower sounding voices. Men prefer people with other men with deeper voices because they think they're more authoritarian. Women prefer men in particular with deeper voices because they think that they're more virile. But actually, there's nothing to prove that either of those cases are really the instant. Having said that, what is important is that it leads us to believe that lower voices are better. And there's nothing we can do about it. It's in here. It's built into the way we are. And that's what makes the difference. Further research was done by Cranfield University, who decided to be a bit more subjective. They looked at the top 100 companies in the world, and they looked at the CEOs of those companies and how long they were in their jobs and what their remuneration packages were. And guess what? The ones with the lower voices were in the jobs for longer, and in general they had higher remuneration packages, even if their company was not performing as well as some of the ones higher up. So where does this leave women? I've got to say, at a natural disadvantage. And for once, it isn't us men who are turning this to problem. It's the whole human race that is actually doing this because it's built into us. So what can we do as speakers, male and female, to improve our chances? Well, have anybody here in the room seen The Iron Lady? Put your hands up if you've seen the film The Iron Lady. So quite a few of you have. Okay, for those of you who have not seen it, it's about the history of Margaret Thatcher. And whether you like her politics or her policies, what none of us can deny was in fact she was a phenomenally great leader. Now, she wasn't always that way. There's a scene quite early in the film where she has made it as an MP, she's got into the cabinet, and all of a sudden she's trying to make a very, very valid point. But fundamentally, they're hearing her, but she isn't being heard. And that, sadly, is what happens in a lot of committee meetings and rooms around the country. Women don't get heard. Move forward a couple of scenes. She's in a meeting with Erin Eve, who was sadly blown up, and I think one of the Saatchis. And Saatchi quite rudely says, because bear in mind that Margaret's sitting in the room, turns around and says, well, the first thing she's going to have to do is lower her voice. She goes off and has speech training, and the rest is history. However, I don't think she got the balance right. You see, sadly, Margaret Thatcher became a caricature of herself. She was more manly in many respects than most of her cabinet were, and she certainly had bigger balls, if you pardon the analogy. But what can we do so that we don't fall into the same trap that Margaret Thatcher did? Well, when you're speaking, there's no reason why you can't use your higher tones and your voice in the way that I'm doing now. It's much higher than I'm not really making a point. But we're very, very fortunate here in the fact that we have a president with enormous speaking experience. And she probably doesn't even realise she's doing what she's doing because she's been doing it for so long. When she speaks to us, she retains all her femininity. But when she has a point to make, she slows down, she lowers her voice, and she speaks with incredible clarity. So to summarise, if you want to talk and you want to tell people about things, by all means be yourselves when you do it. But if you want a point to be heard, to be remembered, slow it down, lower it down, and speak clearly. And then shut up. And if you can do it smiling, then you really have got it made, Mr. Toastmaster.